Let's check in with Maria
Margaronis.
Margaronis. Thank you, Maria. Margaronis. And she is the London bureau chief for The Nation magazine, thenation.com, of course, and in London. Do I have that right, Maria?
Yes, you do, Tom.
Thank you. Tell me what's going on there.
Well, we've had 3 nights of increasing rioting, arson, looting, general mayhem on the streets, starting out in one specific neighborhood where a young black father was shot dead by a policeman, and spreading through many areas of London and now also to Bristol, Birmingham, and Liverpool. And buildings have been set ablaze, local businesses have been trashed, kids are focusing primarily on shops where they carry out cell phones, electronic equipment, trainers, etc., sneakers, you call them. And everyone is completely stunned by this. Nobody expected anything like this to happen. And the police are overwhelmed, and we're all waiting to see what happens tonight.
Is this you said it was a young black father who was shot. Is this mostly people of color who are participating in the riots, or is this right across the board?
Mostly, but not only. It's not primarily a racial thing. I think it's
a
more
poverty
of a class thing. It's the poorest neighborhoods that have really been abandoned, not just now by the latest cuts, but over years of neglect, and where kids feel, they graduate from high school and instead of going to college, they go to prison. So it's partly a response to what's going on now, both the government cuts here and also, I think, the general sense that the world economy is going into freefall and nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of a kind of absence of authority and absence of leadership. But I think it slides very easily from a vaguely political uprising to straight looting, which I think has to do with the way that we've all been taught to live over the last few years, and the fact that for these kids, having a cool cell phone and a plasma TV is what they think happiness is.
And it isn't at the end of the day. And so
no.
They're sliding from despair to rage. Is there what's the political response to this? How are the Liberal Dems, the Labour Party, the Conservative Party, how are they all responding?
The Conservative Party, the Home Secretary Theresa May is saying this is sheer criminality. The Lib Dems are, as usual, playing the sort of soft cop in the coalition and saying a bit more, we have to understand what's going on here. Everyone, including ordinary people on the streets, is horrified by the extent of the looting and the extent to which people are really wrecking their own communities.
Yeah.
So there's it's a very strange moment here, because this is not like the protests that we saw earlier this year. This is not a politically organized or politically conscious event.
This reminds me more of Detroit and Watts in the 70s.
It's more like that. It's kind of burn, baby, burn. Burn it down.
Yeah. And at the time, I mean, here in the United States, the American media portrayed those as race riots. That was the phrase that was used very frequently. And yet, I think most people who had any political awareness saw them as class riots. Yes. Saw them as economic inequality. That was the decade after the Civil Rights Act had been passed, and people had these high expectations once Lyndon Johnson signed those various laws into effect and started the Great Society, that very quickly they would see the results, and the results actually took a generation. Yeah. And so that collision between expectation and reality, led to burning down parts of Los Angeles and Detroit and other cities. Is that the kind of thing that's happening there?
Well, I don't think there's been a whole lot of expectation here, to be honest, in those communities. I think that this is partly racial, because it is black people who are the poorest people in our inner cities on the whole. But it's not like the riots we had here in the 1980s, which were a very clear response to very racist policing, There is still racist policing in London, but much, much less. I mean, steps really were taken after those riots.
Right.
And this was a terrible incident with this young man being shot. But, white people have been killed by the police, too, over the last few years. So I think it's a much more of a sense of economic disenfranchisement, and also just not having a stake in the society, feeling there's nothing in any of this for me.
Well,
so I may as well just go and smash it.
The best research that has been done on inequality in the world has come out of the UK. Kate Pickett and Richard Wilkerson, their book The Spirit Level, the website Inequality Trust or equalitytrust.org.uk, documents how as a society becomes more unequal, things like this happen more frequently, and not to mention things like everything from STDs to drug abuse to teenage pregnancies.
One of the things that people often don't mention is that inequality in this country increased hugely under New Labour. The poor got a little less poor, but the rich got much, much, much richer.
Right, and we saw the same thing under DLC Democrats under the Clinton administration, and we saw the same thing then go on steroids under George W. Bush with the Republicans.
Yeah,
so it's just inequality has become our two countries, the UK and the United States, among the most unequal societies among the 34 OECD countries, the most developed countries in the world.
And going down a very dangerous track right now.
That's right. Absolutely. Maria Margaronis, Margaronis. Thank you.
Don't worry about it.
Got it. Maria, thanks so much for being with us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on.
TheNation.com. Thank you.